Listen, listen, listen. Do you hear the birds singing? Do you hear the trees growing? Did you know that every bird and every tree knows our stories? Hears our stories. In this forest there is a story that they know, a story that I would like to tell you. For long ago there was a king who was a good man. He lived here. He was the father to this forest, the father to that land, a father to his people, and a father to his 2 sons, who he adored. One day, when he was old, he went to see them, sat them down before him and said, "You know, soon I will die. And there is one thing I need to know before I do. I need to know that you will look after one another." And the youngest son looked at his father and said, "My father, of course we will look after one another." But the eldest son, he looked at his father and said, "Oh, do not worry, my father. All will be well." When the old king died and the eldest son took to the throne, that very evening he said to his younger brother, the prince, "I want you to go down into the kitchen. I want you to see what the chef is cooking." When he came back and told him, he said, "Oh, that is good. I'm looking forward to that food then." And when they sat at the table at the end of the meal, he said, "You know, that was good food, but I know you could do better." "Really?" said his brother. "Yes, I know you could do well, because our father was always saying, what a good chef you are. I've made my first royal decision." "What is that, brother?" "I want you to be the chef of the household." "Oh, it will be an honor, my brother," he said. And so it was. He became the chef to the royal household, and for many weeks he cooked fine food, until one evening his brother, the king, said to him, "Come here. I want something else to discuss with you." "What is that?" he said. "I have noticed that the household is not quite kept the way it should be. You know, father said that you were very neat and tidy." "Well, I do my best," said the prince. "Well, I have decided to make my second royal decision." "And what is that?" "I've decided that you should become the head of the household service." "Oh, as well as the chef, of course," said the king. "Well, very well, brother. It will be an honor." So now he had 2 tasks. He had to work long hours, but he didn't mind. He wanted to be a help to his brother, who was the king and had so much to do, didn't he? And the weeks went on, the weeks went on. The king watched his brother. Till one evening he called him and said, come here. I have a third decision that I am going to make." "What is that, brother?" "Your Majesty, look out of the window," said the king. So the prince looked out the window. "What do you see?" "Well, I see the royal gardens." "And what do you think about the royal gardens?" "Well, they are very beautiful. Our father loved the gardens, like he loved many things." "Yes," said the king, "but they're very untidy. I mean, look at the head gardener. Look how he goes up those steps. He is old." "I've made my third decision, brother. I've decided that you shall become the head gardener." "Oh," said the prince, "I see. And I want you to carry on being the chef and the head of the household as well." Well, he did his best to do the 3 tasks: cooking and cleaning and tidying and gardening, hour after hour. He became exhausted, hardly had any time to sleep. He became thin. He lost his appetite. He didn't know what to do. And one night he lay in his bed and he thought, enough. This is enough. I can't do this. I can't do any of these things anymore. I must leave. So he left. In the dead of night, he left that place. He left the palace, went through the gardens, and he went into the forest. And in the dark, he lay down between 2 trees and fell asleep. When the first morning light came, he saw those true trees for what they were. an oak, a holly, kings of the forest. This is what his father had taught him. And then over there he saw an elder, silver birches. He did not know this forest, not this part of it anyway. And as he sat there, suddenly he saw something flying towards him, a little blue-feathered bird, blue feathers on its head and its back and its tail as well. The bird sat on a little branch in the holly tree and looked at him the way birds do sometimes, cocking its head this way and that. And then it flew away, and he watched it go. And then the prince saw the bird coming back. Only this time it seemed to have something in its beak, a little red berry. And it lay down at its feet, the berry, and the prince looked at it. And then the bird flew away. A little later it came back with another berry, only this one was yellow, and it lay that down at his feet as well. And the bird looked up at him and started singing, but he didn't understand what it was saying, if it was saying anything at all. And then the bird flew away again. It came back with another berry and lay it down at his feet. This one was as blue as the midnight sky. Well, what do you want me to do with those? And the bird looked at him and sang, I don't know what you're trying to say. The bird flew away, came back again with the red and the yellow and the berry as blue as the midnight sky. I see, he said. So you want me to eat? How do you know I'm hungry? How strange. So it was that the prince reached down and took that berry as blue as the midnight sky, and it was so sweet. And so he took the other one as well, and then he tried a red one, and that was so tasty, and the yellow one had so many different tastes. So the blue bird flew away and came back with more of the berries. That afternoon, the young prince began to build a fire, for was his father not so wise to teach his son how to build a fire? The little blue feather bird saw what the prince had done and flew away. Where are you going now? It went down to its river and caught a fish and came back with a fish in its beak. Oh, my father taught me what to do with that. And at once the young prince got some stones and put them into the fire to heat them. And then he got a stick, a bit like this one, and he began to dig and dig and dig a hole. And when those stones were hot enough, he put those stones into the hole. And by now he'd got some silver birch bark, and he wrapped that birch bark around the fish and put the fish into the hole and covered it with earth. And when he came back hours later, the fish was cooked, and he sat there almost in the dark with the little bird, watching him eat. So there was the evening, sitting in front of a beautiful fire, when the prince looked around, and he saw so many creatures coming out of the dark. Why, there was a bee, a moth, and a wasp. And then when he looked down, he saw a mouse and a shrew, and then a squirrel. Oh my goodness, there was a stag, and a deer, and an otter. And there, coming over the hill, there came a fox, and behind it came hare. And over there was badger and mole and all the other scribblings and scrabblings that dig underneath the ground. And then he realized, coming from the tree, there came an owl, tawny owl, and then a barn owl, and then a buzzard. And then there was a rook and a crow, and there was blackbird, and there was thrush, and there was robin and a dunnock, and of course there was his little advisor, and there were all the different birds coming there and singing and bringing their own food, all of these creatures gathering around the fire, around him, and eating. And as they were eating, they began to sing and to talk. The prince realized something very strange. As they were singing and talking, he could understand what they were saying. It wasn't because they were using his language. It was now because he understood their language. The highs and the lows. They would look at him and go back to their food and sing again. And he understood it all. And the little advisor said, "Yes, yes, Prince. Now you know you are one of us. This is your home. You will be here in this forest for as long as you need. This is your home. And the prince looked around and knew that was true. And the days and the weeks and the months went by. He did not think of the kingdom anymore. He did not think of his brother the king. They were better off without him. This was his home. But then, one afternoon, he saw something coming through the forest. Why, it was his advisor. He looked worried, and the little bird came and landed in a branch and said, "I have a terrible news for you, terrible news." "What is it? Tell me what the news is." "Across this land, across this kingdom has come a plague, a terrible fever. People are dying," said the little advisor. "And your brother, the king, has the fever too. He will die unless you do something." "What can I do?" "Well," said the advisor, "in the middle of the forest there is a magical tree. We call it the fever tree." "Then take me there," said the prince. "Take me there right away." And so he ran and followed the little advisor as it flew, all the way into the deepest, darkest part of that forest. And when they got there, oh, what a tree it was. He had never seen such a tree. "Gather as many leaves as you can," said the advisor. "Let us go quickly." And so he did, and he began running and running, chasing after the flying advisor. And as he was going, he noticed the creatures that he knew so well now, coming out from underneath the trees. They were offering him roots and leaves and oil from the forest itself. "Take this," one would say. "This is the root of a dandelion. Take this. This is the leaf of a nettle. This is the oil of another. This is the oil of the primrose." And on it went until he got to the palace. And they went all the way down to the stairs and all the way into the kitchen. And when they got into the kitchen, he opened up a drawer and he took out the root of ginger. And he said, "Bring me a pestle and a mortar, quickly." A pestle and a mortar was brought for him. He put all the ingredients into the mortar. He got that pestle and he began to grind them together. And then he asked for the water of the silver birch. "I can mix this all together." And he did. And when it was done, he left the kitchen with the advisor, and they went up the stairs and they went along the corridor. And there, at the end of the corridor, were all these people from the royal household around the doorway of the bedchamber of the king. "Move aside," he said. "I need to see the king. I need to save his life." And they looked around at him, and one of them said, "You're too late. Your Majesty, you're too late." "I will not be too late. Move aside." And so they did. And he went into the bedchamber, and there, around the bed, were all the doctors, the physicians, and the advisors to the king. And he said, "Move aside. I need to see my brother. I need to save his life." And they said, "You are too late. He is going to die." "I am not too late. I have this medicine for him. Move aside." And so they did. And the prince sat on the bed. "Brother," he said, "I will not let you die." But the brother did not respond. So the prince put his hand into the mortar and took out a little bit of the mixture, the medicine, and put it on the lips of the king. But the king still did not respond. "You must swallow." He still did not respond. "Bring me some water from the silver birch." It was brought in a flask. He put some of that liquid into the mouth of the king. "Swallow, my brother, swallow." And he swallowed. "Now eat." But still he did not eat. "Let me give you some more." And he gave him some more of the medicine. And then he saw his brother begin to swallow. He gave him more and more until the king opened his eyes and looked at his brother. "Oh, what a sight you are. I thought you had died. I sent out messengers all over our kingdom and could not find you. I am ashamed of what I did." "Be quiet, brother. I do not want to hear this, but I did so many bad things. I do not want to hear. It does not matter to me. All that matters is that you are my brother, you are the king, and you must live." The king was sat up, and there he looked at his brother. "You are so wise," he said. so clever. Advise me. He said, I will tell you one thing, my brother. Look at the end of your bed. Do you see the little bird there with the blue feathers? Yes, said the king. Well, that is my advisor. That is what I have been doing all this time. I have learned so much from him and all the animals and the creatures that live in the forest. I have a royal decision to make, said the king. I have decided that you and I, my brother, shall rule this kingdom together. Do you agree? And the prince laughed. Of course. I have a feeling, you know, that was what our father always wanted. So let us be kings together. And so they were. And they ruled that land. They looked after that land, this forest, those people, the rivers, and all that lived there. And they say that there was a wooden crest made with 2 crowns on it for that kingdom. And in the middle of those 2 crowns was carved a little bird, the advisor to the kings. And that is my story that came from this forest. And now I share it with you. Blessings.